I've got in my hand here is the OnePlus 7 Pro. This is a flagship of the past. It came out in the spring of 2019. And while here in 2020 we do have the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro, for $500 or less, you can pick this phone up and still have a quality flagship phone. Has a 6.67-inch Fluid AMOLED display. And as you can see, it's all screen on the front, so the selfie camera you're going to see in just a moment is a pop-up variety. 3 cameras on the back. It's got this blue finish, or at least this particular model that I have, almost like a polished stone, this sort of metallic iridescent type of finish. Just a stunning phone and its appearance. You're not going to find too many that look this good anyhow. And then it's got this pop-up selfie camera, which I won't really talk too much more about it other than it pops up. It's a selfie camera, and it also doubles as a face unlock. Let's go around the phone. Along the right side, you've got your power button, and then above that, every phone should have this. Every Android phone, I should say anyhow. This is a 3-position switch that will turn off the notification and ringer for you. So you don't have to go into the notification shade. You won't have the option in the notification shade anyhow. This is what happens when I try to put the ringer all the way down. I can't do so. Nevertheless, I still think it's a convenient switch, just like Apple's got their mute switch. Just the flip of the switch and here you go. So just, I think, a very handy feature. Here's the back side of the phone once again, and of course you've got the 3 cameras, you got the OnePlus logo and then the OnePlus name down there. On the left side you have the volume rocker. Listen to these speakers. Well, those speakers, they sound really good, but there is no headphone jack, so you're going to have to rely on those speakers or have some sort of other alternative. At the bottom there beside that, of course, you've got USB-C charging, you've got warp charging, we'll talk briefly about that a little bit later. And you've got a SIM card tray. Now, there is no spot for an SD card, but this particular model that I've got here has got 256 gigabytes of onboard storage. So that is plenty. You're not going to really have to worry about an SD card. To go along with that, you've got 8 gigabytes of RAM. You've got a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 processor and that really cool optical fingerprint sensor that works very well and very quickly. Let's shoot. Just like that. That's alright, because you can always... So flagship specs, and then you've got this screen that runs at 90 Hertz if you choose to do so. You've got the option in settings, and combined with OnePlus's Oxygen OS, this is running Oxygen 10 on Android 10. Just look how smooth it is. And in a way, I'm rendered speechless because this is my first OnePlus phone, and I've had it for about 3 or 4 months. When I compare this phone, which is a year older than the S20 Plus that I have, and running the S20 Plus at 120 Hertz, somehow this OnePlus at 90 Hertz is even the smoother experience. But I think that just goes to show OnePlus's diligent effort to combine and optimize their software with these flagship specs that I just mentioned. This phone weighs about 206 grams. It's got Gorilla Glass 5 on the front and the back. It's got an aluminum frame. It's got a premium look. We've already seen that earlier, and a premium feel in the hand, but it is extremely slippery, so you're definitely going to have a case for it. 3120 by 1440p and 516 ppi. And this screen, it is up there with Samsung in quality. And really, that's about all I could say to it. I don't know if what you're seeing on video can do it justice, but the quality of the screen is terrific. Plus, when you add the fact that it's virtually all screen, there's no notches, there's no pinholes, there's nothing like that. It makes for, what's the word that's commonly used? A truly immersive experience on this nearly 6.7 inch AMOLED display. Here's the different options that you've got in settings that you can go ahead and make the tweaks and adjustments to make the display exactly to your liking, or at least as much as you can get it. There is no always on display, but that might change with Android 11 once that comes out. Now you say, with the 90 Hz option with the 1440p display, how does that affect battery life? Well, first, there is a 4,000 milliamp hour battery that this phone does contain. And for me, in my experience, in about a 10-hour day with medium to heavy usage, went from 100% to about 30 to 40%. And with this 30-watt warp charge that you have, you can recharge very quickly. There is no wireless charging, but you do have the warp charge. And I should have done a comparison, but if you notice, that particular USB cable is a little bit thicker than your normal USB cable. I've used lesser chargers, 25 watts, 18 watts, and it still charges pretty fast, but that warp charging does make a big difference. It really does speed things up for you. Let's talk cameras now, and we've seen for a good portion of the video the rear cameras in operation. The front-facing camera is 16 megapixels, and you can record up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. There is electronic image stabilization to that, but on the rear-facing cameras you get a 48 megapixel main camera, and the 8 megapixel telephoto camera, and then a 16 megapixel ultra-wide camera. Now, just going through some of the options that you have here in the OnePlus 7 Pro, you will find that it's not going to be as loaded as a flagship Samsung or a flagship LG when it comes to all the different options and the manipulations that you can do or perform with the camera and the camera modes. There is a Pro mode on this, and there's also a Nightscape mode. So for what OnePlus has to offer, here is some of what it produces. You can record up to 4K at 60 frames per second. If you want to do slow motion, 1080p up to 240 frames per second, or 720p at 480 frames per second. Now this is the LTE version that I have. I know there was a 5G version, but I picked up the LTE version of the OnePlus 7 Pro. Call quality sounds terrific. Great crisp and clear out of the earpiece, of course, as well as out of those loud speakers that we heard earlier. To wrap this up, the OnePlus 7 Pro, flagship of the past from 2019, an alternative to maybe the $1,000 plus flagships of 2020 that you don't have the money for, or you just don't want to spend the money on. Maybe worth your consideration. Thanks for watching.